Hi, I'm Jen Langeskov and I'm an artist educator and an artist. I come from a background of teaching art and design in secondary schools and more latterly in infant schools. Since leaving the school system, I have worked in a freelancer delivering philosophy for children through visual art in primary schools around East Anglia. During the pandemic, I was able to deliver virtual sessions online, but my preference is to be face to face in a school with materials, with sketchbooks, with all the things that I need to deliver a really fantastic session. I'm going to talk to you a bit about philosophy for children, P4C, why it's so brilliant, and what it's about. So the idea is about developing key thinking skills. It's about problem solving. It's about building confidence. It's about listening to one another. One of the really important things is about developing questioning vocabulary. It's about sharing ideas, offering opinion, and it's about learning how to justify and give reasons for your opinions, which is really crucial for children of primary school age. The biggest thing I find is to make sure that children respect each other and know that we all come from different backgrounds, different parents, different influences, and that the space for doing philosophy for children and having time to think is to be respectful to one another. One of the reasons why I think it's so brilliant is it really values the children's interests and questions. It makes them really think about what's important to them, but also what's important to each other and to those around them, and that everybody's opinion is really important. It acknowledges everyone's experiences are different, that the way that you have been brought up or your experiences in life are very different from one another. And it values knowledge while recognising that nobody can know everything, including their teacher, which often children think is the fountain of all knowledge. And as I said, it appreciates different opinions. It really allows for freedom of expression. And the way that I develop this method is through talking, through thinking, through writing, but also through visual art, which is this very unique method that I have developed over the last 10 years. The philosophical inquiry starts with everybody sitting in a circle, and we think about why we are there, what we're doing. And the way that I like to get the children to begin to listen is to throw a ball. Doesn't matter what age they are, whether they are year 6 or in reception, get them to throw a ball and give them a topic. So it could be water. We could start with water. And they throw the ball to one another. They have to connect the words to the person that has thrown them a ball, and it really gets them to listen and to think about connecting their ideas. Another way that I like to get them to start is by sitting back to back and getting one of them to tell them the other person what they did at the weekend, and then the first person has to report back to the group to really make them turn their listening ears on and to think about the way in which we listen effectively. Once we've done some listening games and some connecting games, which there are plenty of about, I get them to sit down and we start with our stimulus. It could be a story that is related to a topical theme that they have been working in their classroom. It could be an object that, again, relates to the topical theme. It could be a poem. It could be a video clip. It could be a sentence from a book or a film. It could be anything. But choose something that's punchy. Choose something that you think that will be interesting to them. It might be that you choose something that's totally unrelated to what they've been doing in their class, so that their thoughts are completely separated. But I find it's more effective to tie it into something that they've been doing in their everyday learning. So once we've read the story or looked at the object, I get them to sit down with a piece of paper and think about something they liked about the story or the object, something they didn't like, and what they want to know more about. So they will spend as long as you want, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes doing a drawing, and then they have to come up with a question at the end. So if it's very small children, 4 and 5-year-olds, it might be that they have to get the help of the teacher or the TA or the grown-up in the room to help form the question. But the older children should be able to do this, and they should be able to come up with at least one good question that they want to find out about from the stimulus. We then come together and all the questions are written on the board. And it's really important that everybody gets to say what their question is, so that they all feel valued. They all know that they've got a safe place to speak. It's very important that you go through the kind of guidelines and rules, I suppose, of what the inquiry is going to be. For example, making sure they don't talk over one another, they don't shout out, they listen to one another, that they are respectful. So when they have given their questions and you've written them up on the board, write their names underneath them as well, so that they know what they've said and they can be proud of what they've said. And then start to group them together. So you can get the children to do this. So maybe highlight some words that come out of the questions so that you can group them into concepts. So it might be that lots of them have come up with something about family. So put them all together. It might be that they come up with something to do with dying. Put them all together. Something to do with love. Put them all together. Something to do with being scared. Put them all together. And then say to them as a group, or you can put them into smaller groups, come up with one big class question that really something that as a group we decide that we want to talk about. And then get that question up there in big bold letters, because it might be that you might have it up for a week, 2 weeks, a term, whatever it is. At that point, you can then start to play some more thinking skill games with them. So one of the things that I really like to do is to set out a rope or a piece of string across the whole classroom and give them a question potentially that relates to the ones that they have come up with or relates to the stimulus. But just for the sake of explaining this, one of the questions that I've done before is, would you rather go to school every day and see your friends, or would you rather stay at home every day and watch television? Now that question could be quite poignant at the moment because they've just been through their lockdown. And then say to them, right, this end is school, this end is TV, go and stand at the end that you feel more strongly about. And then you'll always find that 75% of them will go and stand at TV and 25% will go and stand at the other end. And then say, right, you've got to give me a reason why you think that this is important. And gradually, as they start to listen to one another, as they start to think, they will move down the line until they are in a different place. And say to them, there's no right or wrong to this answer. You can choose whichever you want, but as long as you can give a reason for it and as long as you can justify. So you will have spent some time talking about the difference between justification and reasoning. You will also spend some time thinking about the difference between a theme and a concept. Obviously, this is tricky stuff, especially for children in infant school. But you can break it down into small, little, manageable tasks. So once you've played some thinking games with them, another one that I really like is, do you agree with something that you have talked about in the stimulus? And say, yes, I agree. Put the children on one side. No, I don't agree. The children choose the other side, or I don't know, and they can stand in the middle. I find it's really important to make sure the children move around the room, because I think sitting around all the time, which they do, and it might not be possible at the moment, but moving around is really important. They can then choose the side that they agree or disagree, and then think about what their answers are and whether they want to change. It's really important as well that you get them to not just follow their best friend across the room. That you get them to, especially the quiet ones who perhaps aren't as confident in talking, get them to really think about why they have chosen their answer and what is the reason why. Once you have come back to your big question, get them to play some of these games with this concept and really think about what are the key things that are coming out from this discussion. What are you learning as the facilitator? It's really important as well that you are not driving this conversation. They are driving it and you are facilitating it. So you're just making sure that the conversation doesn't go completely wild, which often can be really exciting, but you've got to kind of almost chair what's going on. And make sure that they don't start attacking one another. I don't mean physically, I mean saying, no, in their opinions, saying you're wrong. And often these conversations will come down to God and religion, because that's what they've grown up in, that's what they know. And that's where things can get a bit tricky. So you have to make sure that you're monitoring what's going on. These conversations you will find become so enlightening and so exciting, and it will give you a lot to think about in their everyday learning. So whether you're their classroom teacher or whether you are delivering this as an extra thing, really get somebody to note down what the children are saying and how they're saying it, and if they are developing skills, listening, confidence, problem solving, debating, and get somebody to make sure they are monitoring that, so that you can then discuss that with the classroom teacher, or you can reflect on it as their teacher. Once you have really pulled apart and thought about this big question, now's the time to introduce an artist. Now, it might be that you have used an artist as your initial stimulus, and that's fine. And if you haven't, now's the time to introduce it. I like to go away after the first session and think about an artist that might relate to the children's thinking. This could be conceptual, it could be thematic, it could be in a practical technique that the artist uses that perhaps relates to something from the story. It doesn't matter, to be honest, what the artist is, but choose something that you think the children will be inspired by. And also think about how it might lend itself to a final piece later on. Again, you don't want to be dictating what the final piece is going to be, but it's quite nice to be able to have something in mind if you are collating materials for this project. Whilst the children are thinking, I like to get them to draw, I like them to doodle, I like them to make. So it might be that you've got lots of pieces of cardboard and you're just saying to them, as you're thinking, start to make and create. So cardboard, masking tape, pieces of scrap paper, chalks, pens, pencils, anything that you've got lying about, and get them to draw their thinking as they're going along. It works quite nicely if you have a big piece of paper and in groups of 3 or 4, they have their question in the middle and they're starting to pull apart what those things mean. Even if it's just words, even if it's just little drawings to work alongside with it, just getting them to be creative as they're thinking is a very powerful tool. Once you have established how they want to move forward, so whether that they want to make a big sculpture, whether they want to make do a big canvas, whether they want to do individual pieces, whether they're going to print make, whether they're going to paint, what it is they're going to do, you can then start to think, are we going to make a big class outcome, or are we going to have some smaller things going on? Now, it's really important as well that the children know that these their final pieces are going to be exhibited. So I'm a big fan of an exhibition at the end of each project or at the end of each school year, so that you can use all the children's work. If you are lucky enough to have a nice place in your school or community centre to display the work, that works really well. But also there are plenty of galleries and museum spaces which have outreach budgets which enable you to have an exhibition, and they will cover the costs. It's a great way to get the community involved, parents, governors, other children. I like to invite an artist to come and do a talk about the importance of creative arts in schools. I like to invite the press to make sure that we are covered there, and that it's giving a nice platform for the children, a good high profile for the school, and it really shows people what the benefits of developing thinking skills through visual art are. So it might be, when you're thinking about your final piece, it might be that you've got an area of the school that is going to be perfect for a site-specific sculpture. It might be that you've got a whole load of cardboard boxes that you're going to create something inside of. It might be that you've got a ceiling in the library that would be perfectly placed to have some artwork created on. The more creative that you can be, the better. And don't forget, this is going to end up as a collaborative piece of work. And by that I mean between yourself and the children. The older they are, the more independent they can be with their thinking, the more independent they will be in their choices of artwork that they want to make. The younger they are, the more influence you're going to have. So although it's going to be their ideas and you're the facilitator, it's going to be a collaborative piece of work which you are going to assist on. I'm going to show you some examples of the kind of work that I have done with the children, but this is a really, really powerful and effective method for developing thinking skills. It can be transferable across the curriculum. You can use the philosophy for children in all the subjects. you can do some cross-curricular work. So you're combining the thinking skills, you're combining the art, and you might want to use some of the stuff that's going on in science, or some of the stuff that's going on in history or geography or whatever it is, English, to create this project. I deliver CPD to primary schools. I'd be really pleased to deliver it in your school or your setting. Or if you just want to talk to me about how to go about developing your own project, then please do get in touch by emailing me or following me on social media. I hope you found this interesting, and I know it's a method that's really impactful and has really worked for hundreds and hundreds of children that I have facilitated it for. Thanks very much for listening. I've included some of the images made by the children in the collaborative work after a philosophical inquiry. You can see that there's a real mixed media approach, definitely being led by the children, using sculpture, painting, printmaking, inspired by artists like Yayoi Kusama and Hannah Hock. There is words and there is site-specific sculptures. This one was using the outdoor classroom, and the last one was a series inspired by a poem by William Blake. Please feel free to contact me by email or follow me on Twitter at Langeskov Jen.